So we have three main components, what we are doing. On the one hand, we have the Cardano API as a community service. It is an easy entry point for developers to open free interfaces to explore ideas and launch proof of concepts. It eases the adoption by providing an infrastructure for initial setup and testing of ideas, and encourages developers to start building not in days, but in minutes. Second product we're launching is the Cardano Starter Kit, which is an open source project-based learning opportunity for people to engage with Cardano in the real world. It consists of guiding learning materials and implementation tips that helps users to learn about Cardano while producing real world outcomes. And it's basically grounded in the understanding that we learn best by doing experimental learning. And the third component of our proposal is the GIMBALABS. So GIMBALABS is a platform to share APIs and Cardano starter kits that allow users to share experience about what works, what they've learned, and how to improve our open source resources. The community members will also be able to contribute their own APIs and starter kits, supporting our intention to make GIMBALABS a valuable resource for the Cardano community and beyond. And the third component is a strong one, because we are trying to build a network of those builders and implementers to connect, among others, and drive adoption. And of course, it's not only being about impactfully onboarding, but it is furthermore, an empowering all to take us next step toward adoption. So here comes the question about how we want to achieve that. So our value proposition and scope of work is divided in three paths. First path is providing this material I just was talking about. It is the starter kits and the APIs as open source resources for the Cardano community and beyond that will help support the growth of the Cardano ecosystem. And of course, it includes building the platform of GIMBALABS, where we want to share, where we want to engage with people, and people contributing, developing their own starter kits, and building these networks of builders and implementers. Second path is building competencies. And this path is actually addressed to be, in the future, hopefully near future, being a revenue stream to our business model, because we want to create custom educated material and APIs for Cardano blockchain startups that will drive adoption, and also have a stream on giving a capacity to new organization to deliver in-house educational marketing. And the third path is basically our Horizon 3, because we want to take these learnings from path 1 and 2 and get it into an even bigger ecosystem to guide businesses, institutions, and university partners toward the blockchain innovation. And of course, all that said wouldn't have been possible without the human power of Cardano and its foundations, and I think this is trust. And this is the essence of what has brought us together. There is the founding educator, James, with 16 plus years in education. He's a teacher and teacher educator, and has a profound experience in learning experience design. We have our founding developer, Roberto, with 14 years plus experience as a developer, Immorgo DevOps advocate, and believer in open knowledge. And last but not least, there is me, the founding marketer, with 15 years plus experience in business development, very focused on market approaches and stakeholder management. and focusing on strategy and business operations, that GimbalLabs will evolve in line with our vision, which is a world where as many people as possible are empowered to solve problems using the Cardano platform. And just going back to the seed, the Catalyst project just did for us.
Okay, thank you. And we're approaching the 10 minutes. I did not hit start at the right time, so I had to use the clock, but I started the timer. So I'm a little bit off. Let me know when you're done there, and I'll make sure we get the time set correctly. But I see we're about 10 minutes, so about another minute, Julie. Thank you. Are you good?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I will stop the clock. I forgot to tell people that I'm going to set the clock to make sure we manage time well. All right, the next 5 minutes is questions from the Gauntlet. Who wants to go first? I have a few myself, but you guys do the honors.
So let me start off. Can you explain? So I see on your website there's the Cardano starter kits and there's the APIs. So one of them is an educational based platform where you're producing YouTube videos and educational content in order to onboard people. So what percentage of your project is going to be dedicated towards making these kind of educational videos versus creating like APIs and dropping them on whatever portal you're using?
Interesting question. I think I might want to highlight the synergy here of both of the engineering and API and technical background with the educational experience background. So we will learn by combining the API experience and trying to give it a voice through the Cardano starter kits. And again, taking the competency of experimental learning to the APIs, that it just get very much better understood by the people. So having both James and Roberto here in the team, so I would probably name it as a time allocation of both being explicitly focused on their streams. So Roberto on his and James on the starter kits. But nevertheless, there are going to be these synergies that are very powerful. And yeah, I mean, it would probably, it needs to be destined. And considering the whole project, I think in kind of 70% in total, because we also have GimbalLabs to administrate, get the content in, doing some kind of moderation, because we want to come people in, have this conversation among each others, doing the improvements and providing their own starter kit. So we are here to guide them with the quality required to establish also this high standard and leverage on that experience we gain through the community.
All right, thank you, Julie. All right, I have a two-part question, and that is how and where can developers access the APIs, and how will the APIs stay up to date with the changes to the Cardano APIs? So first of all, how and where can they can the developers access the APIs?
Yeah, good question. That's actually what Roberto working on. So we just identified the need that we need a streamlined guidance to not take 4 weeks to access it, but rather than give specific learning experience and this way path to, it just takes you minutes with a starter kit explaining how you access the API to get into the room and just start using and experimenting on what you want a new API to be.
Okay.
Right.
And how would you stay up with the latest changes to the Cardano APIs? Let's say IOG changes something. You guys have a mechanism in place for that?
I would like to hand over this question to Roberto, and you know it, so that's
Okay.
great. In the chat,
Okay.
I think he's the most appropriate person to respond it.
All right, so Roberto can answer that one in the chat, and we have 2 minutes left of the gauntlet round. And I guess the third question that would follow up to that one would be, what are the starter kits? Are those like videos, tutorials? How's that delivered?
Yeah. So this is a combination of material. You would always have a documented version of a starter kit that guide you, but there's also the videos James is producing to guide the people and engage in a different way. And further that, there's always the channels we have on Discord, and we might open, or we already have open, different starter kits channels where people can interact with other people and with us. So we want to accompany this experience, of course, to make it best, and more important for the niches is to get the feedback, to feel what people need, what are the questions we're missing. So this is really an evolving business model that we also depend on the community, and we want to get even more insight into all the actually users we defined in our proposal. This is a user inventory where we really tackle different needs of each of those to really be more customized.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Julie. And Roberto answered your question in chat. He said that's the gap they're trying to cover, relieving the pain of doing those maintenances from developers. So that's actually part of the proposal is how to keep those APIs up to date. It appears is the answer from Roberto. Does that sound good?
It's the maintenance, yes.
Right on. Okay, and that brings us to 5 minutes. Almost there, a couple seconds left. Any last, by the way, questions from David or Mercy? Do you got anything you got to ask? Pressing.
Oh, I'm good.
As a non-developer, say I wanted to bring in 100 people into a workshop, like an hour-long workshop, what could I teach them in an hour's time with your starter kits?
Yeah, probably a lot of stuff. So it depends on what they want to learn and what's the goal, what they're looking for, and that really addresses the in-depth or the diversity we would want to present on these starter kits. So we want to build beginners, we want to build intermediates, we want to build experts. So this might be an approach to really address experienced developers and what you mentioned. Yeah.
All right, and that's time. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, David. And next we go over to the chat. So about 5 minutes for questions in chat. If you have questions, please let us know. Drop them there. Philippe, were you scanning through? Did you find anything yet?
I got one from Tresses Nove, says, how much are you asking from the fund?
Yeah, we are asking for 270, 280 ADAs, 280,000 ADAs.
Okay.
So $28,000 approximately.
Okay. And let's see. Someone asked, when is mass adoption, or how will Cardano start mass adoption? That's not a question for Julie. That'd be more for me and Philippe. So we'll get back to that one later. It's hard to define. All right. Any other questions? Looks good. Looks good. I don't see any other questions in chat. What do you think, Philippe?
Yeah, Rick, I had one more question. So when I'm looking at your idea scale, your path 2 says educational marketing for Cardano blockchain businesses. Rick and I have been making video and educational content for a while. We know how hard it is to actually gain some traction and get some eyes and listeners on your content. So your target market, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to create content in order for it to be digestible by new people? Or who's your target market? Do you have already clients in mind that you want to work with that are requesting your product? Or is this more like starting from the bottom and you're going to try to work your way up?
Yeah, thank you very much. So very important. I mean, first looking forward, we engaging with the community, and especially we're engaging with the Catalyst proposers. There we see some interesting interests in people who want to join or want to partner up just because this experimental learning combined with what they want to build need also have a voice. And I think this bold competency makes it very interesting to team up, right? So yes, target would be empowering those proposers that may lack of this competency, or they may want to get taught by us to broaden their capacity on delivering further to make their proposal even more sustainable. And on the other hand, we also have proposals that are focusing on developers in specific. So this is also a huge target. So we have the small businesses, startups, and we have the developer segment that we in the first place would like to focus on. But nevertheless, if you view our user inventory, we think bigger, as I might now communicate, because this is focused. We want to make sure that we have KPIs set in place and go with the metrics Catalyst is going to measure us, and what is the most impactful, or what are the low-hanging fruits. We're coming from that side. So, but nevertheless, we get covered some more users and want to get them know better to broaden this concrete segment
Okay, and that's
of
time.
people to be addressed.
All right.